Welcome to Democratic Television, a program of the Santa Clara County Democratic Party that brings insights, perspectives, and attitudes of our always thoughtful Democratic guests. Today we're joined by Terrie Iacino, the Executive Director of Step Up Silicon Valley. Did I get it right, Terrie?
The campaign to cut poverty.
Oh, that's the rest of it.
Yeah, the whole title.
Well, I think the campaign to cut poverty is very important to weave in there, and we're going to talk about that. And by the end of the show, I think we'll be 50% on our way to cutting poverty.
That would be outstanding.
Well, this show has a lot of reach. We'll see how it goes.
We have a few years for that.
Okay.
I'm happy to be here.
Good, good. Well, before we start talking about the campaign to cut poverty, let's talk about you. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school?
Well, Steve, you know, I grew up in Denver, Colorado, in a very Italian Catholic family. I was the oldest daughter of, before me there were 6 grandsons, because you always talk in terms of your grandparents. And when I came along, I was the little princess until my sister came along. After I graduated high school, I came to California, went to college in Los Angeles at Loyola Marymount. And when I finished college, trying to decide what I was going to do with the rest of my life, I entered religious life. I was a sister for 8 years.
Is that the same as being a nun?
Yeah, that's the same as being a nun.
I guess that talks about my religious upbringing.
I really have to start at the beginning with you. No, when I was in religious life, my community was the Religious of the Sacred Heart of Mary. These are the sisters that have all the Marymount colleges and universities all over the world. And they're also the nuns that taught at Loyola Marymount College. But I taught in East Los Angeles, in the barrio, for 4 years. Then I came north, and I was here in Santa Clara County. I was in Cupertino at St. Joseph's. And while I was in religious life, because I was getting a mixture of different kind of apostolic work, that's what they call it, I was a CETA worker at Catholic Social Services.
Oh.
Isn't that interesting?
In the 70s?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Good job.
Thank you.
And I worked with Father Bill Leninger then.
Oh.
And Helen Hansen, of course, was the executive director of Catholic Social Services in those days. The first bishop of San Jose used to call her the first bishop of San Jose. But anyway, Bill invited me in to be a CETA worker, and I was doing organizing in parishes then.
Oh, no kidding.
I was Sister Teresa. And what's interesting about that is that in 1980, I left religious life. I went on a 30-day silent retreat to the tip of Long Island. I was in Sag Harbor, New York. Now, you can fool yourself for a weekend, and you can fool yourself for a week. But for 30 days in prayer and silence. In fact, while I was on retreat, Pope Paul VI died, and I never knew. There was no televisions, no radios, no nothing. They say that that's a special grace when a pope dies when you're on retreat, because that doesn't happen very often. But regardless, it was during my retreat time, I realized I could be a religious woman without being a woman religious in a community.
Oh, okay.
So I left religious life. Now I'm 30 years old. All my friends have families and mortgages, and I hadn't even paid taxes. So I came back to Santa Clara County. I worked at the Area Agency on Aging, the Council on Aging, for a brief stint. I was assistant director at Outreach with Roberta Gardella way back in the beginning of time. And then I became part of the new team for the new Diocese of San Jose. So I ended up working in the church regardless. I was the advocacy developer for the Diocese of San Jose, and through the years, 26 years I was there. In my career, I got to the level of Episcopal Director, which our bishop made up. There's no such title, but I was that.
I like that.
It's about as high as a laywoman can go in the church. And I left that work 2 years ago, not knowing what was going to come next. And that was okay. Out of the blue, this job arrives in my email saying, Terrie, maybe you still want to go work for the church. And I thought, well, gosh, I've been doing that all my life. Well, what's the job? And I read the job description, and it says, build coalitions. Well, I can do that. Organize people. Well, I can do that. Work for the poor, with the poor. Change the rate of poverty. And it dawned on me, back to the poor, back to the poor. And in fact, it was the full circle from Catholic Charities as a CETA worker, now back to Catholic Charities as the director of the Campaign to Cut Poverty. Isn't that something?
Yeah. What motivated you as you got older, maybe from your childhood, to want to do that? Was your family involved in doing community service work or work through the church? Or?
Well, in those days, my father was a real estate man. Both my parents owned restaurants in Denver. I went to public school. I don't know how I ever got into this Catholic school. I taught in Catholic school. I didn't know I'd never been in Catholic school, but I was going to teach in Catholic school, which was a lot of fun. I taught 5th and 6th grade math, which I believe is all the math you need to know in your life. It's multiplication and division and a little bit of, you need to know percent, and you need to know division. You need to know a little bit of geometry. And when I started teaching, I had 41 children in my homeroom.
Wow.
But my father knew that there was something you needed to give back. And it was a big Italian thing. I don't know how familiar you are with the Italians, but in Denver, we had Mother Cabrini. She's one of the few American saints. And she had an orphanage. And my great-grandmothers used to break bread for the orphanage. So it was a big thing, to help people that needed help. So it was instilled in me. The values were there from the get-go.
I got you.
From there.
So here you are getting an offer after you thought maybe you're going to be able to kick back and, read those novels that you never got to read. And
what I was going to do, when I left my job at the diocese, and I'd been there 26 years, I wanted to take a break anyway. So the first thing I did was I cleaned out my garage. Now I know that sounds silly, but I wanted everything neat and tidy. And I was so pleased with the results that I would have tours for my neighbors.
Oh.
I would have lemonade and bring them over. And
well, you are an organizer. It's like a hobby for you.
I had organized the wall where you put all your tools and new cabinets and new bench. It was really exciting. And I thought, well, okay, now what's my next thing? I talked to the little retired ladies in my complex, saying, well, now what do you get? I thought maybe I should retire. Hey, I'm almost 60. Let's get there. And they said, what do you do all day? Well, then we walk our dogs. Oh, big deal. Okay. Then you get up and you drink your coffee and you wash the dishes and you make the bed and you read the paper and then you water the plants. And I said, well, now what do you do at 10 o'clock? And they said, no, Terry, that takes like all day practically. I thought, oh my God. I said to them, do you know where the community center is in South San Jose? And they said, we have a community center?
Oh.
I thought, oh, come on. So I started, now you'll love this. I was organizing field trips with my little retired neighbors. I was hauling them down to the community center. Some of us joined a Tai Chi class on Fridays. Oh. They couldn't believe there was a community center there. There was even a place you could come and get a meal. They were like, it's not even that far away. So I kept doing stuff like that, and then out of the blue, this email landed, and it nagged at me. You know how you put it on your coffee table? I walk the dog in the morning, I'm doing a little prayer and meditation about this and saying, oh man, it's the poor. Mm-hmm. I still have gifts to give. So get back in the rails, get back in the fight.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the work. What is the status of poverty in Santa Clara County?
Well, people beyond the county, and maybe even in the county, don't believe that we have poor.
Right.
But the reality is that by our statistics and by the data we've gathered, 25%, 1 in 4 families in our county cannot make ends meet. Now that's incredible to say. Now, in Santa Clara County, that is different than what it would be for somewhere else because the cost of living is so high here.
Right.
For a family of 3, a single parent and 2 small children, just to make ends meet, they would have to make $59,000 a year. For some people, that's 4 full-time low-wage jobs.
Sure.
It's impossible. So there's a lot of people who are poor, and since the economy tanked,
Right.
there's a new poor,
Right.
and there has to be a special sensitivity to that that level of folk. They're standing in lines for organizations that they at maybe one time had been a donor or been a volunteer, and now they're on the other side of the table.
Wow.
Different sensitivities.
Must be humbling for people to realize.
Well, and embarrassing. Some people, there's stories of folk that lined up for turkeys at Christmas and wanted a bigger turkey. Can you imagine you're getting a free turkey and demanding a bigger turkey? And the volunteer staff were like shocked. But they were intimidated and embarrassed, and they felt they were entitled because I used to support this place.
Oh.
Different sensitivities.
Yeah, yeah. So the numbers are 25%.
Yeah.
Not really able to make it.
Barely making it.
Yeah. Now, is this a project, Step Up, that exists just in our county? Is this something Catholic Charities is taking on nationally, internationally, universally?
Oh, please God, no. The campaign to cut poverty is national. Catholic Charities USA set this all in motion. And every Catholic Charities affiliate, of which we are one, I think there's 146 of them, chose in their own unit, in their own area, how they were going to do this. Well, in Santa Clara County, we realized we can't do this alone.
Yeah.
So we had this big breakfast, big to-do. This is before I even came on staff, and decided that we needed to pull in partners. We needed to pull in government. We needed to pull in businesses, the faith community, other CBOs, and say, how together can we cut poverty? And let's do something audacious, and let's call it Step Up Silicon Valley Campaign to Cut Poverty.
Oh, I see. So that's a unique name to this
Just
community.
To this.
Who are some of the other partners in this, some of the other nonprofits?
What I did when I first came on and I've only been there like 2 years, this October, as the director, I called together a steering committee and I said, we need to get our partners. And these are people that actually have signed memorandums of understanding. And they spend a lot of energy. I have about 96 people in committees to Step Up. And I go to all the committees. There are 5 issue groups that are the critical issues of the poor: food, housing, healthcare, education, and
another one.
Income. Oh my God, how could you forget income? That's like jobs.
Yeah.
Getting work, education.
So those are the 5 areas that you work in.
And for each of those, people in our community who are experts have taken the lead. Example, food, Second Harvest Food Bank. Cindy McGowan chairs the committee.
Got it.
Income. Income's unique because I've got the business school at Santa Clara University, Father Nicky Santos chairing that one. And we're talking about innovative things there. Education. I've got the superintendent of Franklin McKinley School District, John Porter, taking the lead there.
Very good.
I mean, you can go right down the list.
Well, that sounds like a great approach to doing this. We're going to take a break right now. Okay. When we come back, I'd like to talk with you more about how you make people aware of this.
Oh, okay.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to my interview with Terrie Iacino, the Executive Director of Step Up Silicon Valley, the campaign to cut poverty in the next 20 minutes. Let's see what we can do.
Not the next 20 minutes, the next 20 years.
Oh, okay.
Well, by 2020, we're going to cut
Okay, but time
poverty.
goes quickly when you're successful.
I hope so.
Well, what I wanted to ask you now is, having this mission is one thing, convincing everybody to get on board is another thing. What are some of the devices you employ to get word out about the astonishing rate of poverty in our community?
Well, besides the issue groups I talked to you about, Steve, I have task forces that work on certain things. One works on advocacy, which is, we're going to change public policy and regulations that affect the poor. Another works on integrating systems, because if we can't create a system in our community that makes it simpler for the poor to get the benefits and the resources that we have.
Access, yeah.
Access is a critical piece. So that there's task force on, that's integrated systems. Then I have a task force on awareness. And this is very cool, because their job is to say, how can we give people an experience of empathy? And we have speakers, but you just don't go out and talk about poverty or show another movie. What we've come up with in Santa Clara County, and we in fact learned this from Missouri, we bought the kit. It's called the Poverty Simulation. It's a community action poverty simulation, and we've trained facilitators. And this past year, we've had over close to 1,000 people who participated in this. But this is very cool, and you have to come and do one of these. What we do is people register. You have to pre-register. We have to have at least 40 to make this thing happen, because it's lots of preparation. When you walk in the room, you put on a name tag, and that's the identity you will have for the whole simulation. So you become this member of a family with this name, and you sit with your family, and when the facilitator alerts you, you open up the packet, and in the packet there's a card that tells you your life story. Just yours. Everybody gets one. And it also tells you what you have to do in 1 month as a member of this family, living in a low-income family for 1 month. And we're going to do it in 4 15-minute weeks. So for 1 hour in 15-minute weeks, you're going to live this life. And it could be all kinds of things. If you're the breadwinner, you have to go to work. And you spend 7 minutes in work, and you get your paycheck, then you have to go to the bank and cash your paycheck. Then you have to go pay the utilities or
And these
rent.
are different stations within the room.
All around the room, around the perimeter of the room, we have resources at every table. And the people who staff the resources are clients from our agencies. So we've reversed the roles. We've got the bank, we've got the quick cash, we've got the pawnbroker, we've got jail, we've got daycare, school, community action services, social services. Over the course of this last year, we have, I tell you, we put about 1,000 people through this. But one of the very first simulations, I pulled all the leadership team together and the coordinators, and these are pretty high-powered folk. I mean, we're talking about Fred Frere from the Health Trust and Carol Lee Hutton, from United Way. And in Carol Lee's, I'll never forget it, at the end of it, after you've lived this life for an hour, you recognize how frustrating and impossible the system is, because you can't go to any resource without a transportation pass. And if you don't have a transportation pass, you got to go buy one. So you got to go stand in line. Their life is standing in line, and always trying to find the money to make it happen. Carol Lee Hutton said, I know why I do all my banking online now. She hated standing in line for the bank. And then when the facilitator blows the whistle, the week's over, everything shuts down. You got to go home, whether you bought food for your kids or paid your utilities. The first week, everybody's kind of, just like a game. But now they're learning how to play the game, They think. The second week, people start pushing each other out of the way and getting to where they got to go, and the kids are going to school. And if they can't get the utilities paid or the rent paid, they get evicted. And we turn their chairs upside down, and they've got to go to the homeless shelter. I mean, it's real.
That is real.
By the third week, what they don't realize is all their kids have a holiday from school. So you got to do something with your kids now. More anxiety, more interest. Do you take them with you? If you take them with you, you need a transportation pass. If you find somebody to watch them, there has to be somebody you trust, or they're going to get picked up by the police. We have police in this thing. And at the end of the whole thing, when it all boils down, at the end of the hour, they hand in their name tag, they fill up the little package, and we give them a moment to say, now that was a simulation. Now we're going to share in a small group, maybe 12 or so. What did it feel like? What did you feel like? What happened to you? What was your role? And we debrief the whole situation. And we invite the people who are resources to come and join that circle. I'll tell you, there have been some tears at these events from people you would unexpected, because as they're telling their frustrating, real for a minute story of this slice of life, the resource person turned to one of the people I was sitting with and said, "You know, you're telling my life story. That's me.
Wow.
I had 2 children. I have a disability. I couldn't get to the bank. I couldn't find a job." I mean, it was, talk about a moment, an epiphany for folk. We have done these in faith communities. We've done them for the general community, but one of the most exciting one was last February. Jim Bell, our assemblyman, is on my leadership team, and he's been supportive of this. And Catholic Charities of California wanted to borrow our name for Step Up California.
Oh.
So I lent the logo, heck yes. And together at the state capitol, Jim said, "Bring the poverty simulation here."
Oh.
So at the state capitol, in the basement of the rotunda, down in that little, it's that coffee shop place, we shut it down and we made that into the poverty simulation. And Jim Bell and people across the aisle, they all came together with their staffs. It was 4 the staffs of legislators at our state capitol were the participants in the simulation. And while the legislators often had to leave because they were calling off to a vote or whatever, their staff stayed. But I was happy to get their staff, really, because who writes what? We know all of that. And we added a station, interestingly enough, when we were in Sacramento. We added a station. I was the EBT reauthorization place.
EBT?
This is the emergency benefit transaction.
Oh.
This is the cards people get for food stamps. People don't get a book of food stamps anymore.
Right.
But in the state of California, you have to be reauthorized. You have to recharge that card every 3 months.
Oh.
Which is crazy.
Right.
We're one of 2 states in the country that still do that. We're trying to change that through our advocacy and legislation. But even the staff of these legislators had to come and get in line with me in the night and say, "Do you have your ID?
Oh.
Could I see your social security number? Do you have these documents?" And they're thinking like, "Come on, lady, I got to go buy food for my family, you know?"
Right.
Just to get a sense of that desperation the poor have, you know. We call it an exercise in empathy because people debrief beyond this many times. When I did it as a participant, the mother of my family was a woman who works in the housing department for the city of San Jose. And so whenever I see her at a meeting, we have an automatic connection. We were bonded for an hour. And at one point in the simulation that I participated in, she came home to the family on one of those breaks, and she was holding everything, and she said, don't worry, everything's going to be okay." I thought, what the heck happened? Later in the debriefing, she said she went to cash her check, and the person at the bank overpaid her, and she never said a word.
Oh.
Even her own values. She realized, oh my God, now my kids can go on the field trip at school. Now I can pay the utilities. So you compromise what you've been trained. It's survival. It's survival, huh?
Right.
It's a very exciting thing. We do these periodically, and in fact, they get posted on the website for Step Up. I finally got my web designers to put a calendar on the opening web page.
Yeah.
And you can see what activities are happening for the campaign there, and you can find the stimulations that are coming up on that.
Now, you mentioned to me that you work with different partners, and this is a county-wide effort.
Oh, yeah.
So is the county stepping up?
The county has stepped up big time. The Social Services Administration Agency, the SSA, got to learn all the acronyms if you live in this county. Dana McQuarrie at Social Services has chaired the Integrated Systems Task Force that's trying to bring all those entities together to figure out how do we integrate this. And Will Lightborn and all the county's been big time players in this. A great group of people really struggling to figure out how do we be true to what our funding sources are requiring from us in terms of data, but how can we find a tool that will populate all these darn applications so the poor people don't have to start all over every time they go somewhere to get authorized. The city is big time involved in this with housing.
San Jose?
Yep.
Oh, good.
San Jose, the biggest city. But I have people from other cities that are involved in it. I have the Presbytery of San Jose. I have of Sacred Heart Community Services is the Community Action Agency. They really are funding my position.
Oh, good.
So it's, it is a full community. And now that I've these two innovative things with Santa Clara University, the business school, we don't want to keep doing the same thing. You can't serve your way out of poverty. We can't keep doing the same thing better and think that that's going to be the answer.
Needs a real game change.
Game changers. What's innovative? The business school is talking about social entrepreneurs. Base of the pyramid is a whole model. One of the professors over there wrote a book about this. How does a philanthropic corporation learn about a community, live in a community, find out what's necessary, and then train them with the skills they need to grow the businesses there and keep the businesses there? Franklin McKinley is going to be deep working in a community similar to the Harlem Children's Zone.
Great. I'm sure people are going to want to get more involved and learn about it. Do you have a phone number that you can give out and a website? I have a phone
number. I have a website. I will go to any meeting, anywhere, anytime to talk about this.
Apparently.
I love to go to meetings. No, my direct line. Everyone can have my direct line. It's 408. I have to look at it because I don't memorize it. 325-5132. 5132. And the website, www.stepupsv.org.
It's that simple.
Isn't that cool?
And so people can go to that, learn about the poverty simulations and how they might be able to do it.
And on the website, each one of those critical issues of the poor have lots of resources and even more resources beyond that.
Great. Well, Terrie, thank you very much for being on Democratic Television. You're certainly walking the values of the Democratic Party as you work to end poverty.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks for watching Democratic Television. Give us a call at 408-445-9500 or visit our website, www.sccdp.org. Help make a difference.